this is how to reject bad components after running ICA using the Sasica plugin. So this is a data set that has already had ICA run on it, and it's been epoch'd and had the baseline removed. You definitely need to have it epoch'd in order to use the Sasica plugin, but it's okay if you don't have the baseline removed. So what we do to use the Sasica plugin is click Tools and click Sasica, and the Sasica menu will pop up, and these are all of the different tests that Sasica will run. So we're going to use all of them except for this dipole fit residual variance because I couldn't figure out how to get it to work. Sasica's kind of buggy, so I think there's just a problem there. So these are all the parameters for these tests. So a lot of them, the threshold is set to auto, so we're just going to leave that. I have already typed in the vertical EOG and horizontal EOG channels, which are those numbers I found like from the documentation for the nets. So I set those myself, but the rest of them were all automatic. And then we're going to click compute, and it's going to run all the tools here, which could take a little while. For more information on what these tests are looking for and how they work, you can look at the Sasica PowerPoint presentation. It's just sasica.ppt. So this takes a while to get all these plots to come up, but now they're starting to come up, which is good. And they're plotting one by one, and it's really important to not click on anything while it's plotting these, or else it'll get confused and stop, and then you'll have to start over. So what it's plotting right now are the head maps for each component, and the green and red signifies its initial guess as to whether it's a good or bad component. And our job now is to verify whether or not we think that it's accurate or not. And Sasica also gives us this plot here, and I'll explain this one first. So what this is each of these dots represents one of the components, and the red line is the threshold, and if it's past this threshold, that signifies that it was marked as a bad component for these different tests that it's running. And you can click on the dot, and you'll get that component property window to pop up sometimes, but sometimes not. Let's see, are we getting anything? Nope. Okay. Well, that works sometimes. And so these are the different tests that it has run on these components. And for more information on these components, you can look at the Sasica PowerPoint, just sasica.ppt, and there's a link to it on the website. Okay, I'll just minimize that to get out of the way. So here is the little key, and so the colored dot here, for the ones that Sasica has marked as bad, the colored dot corresponds to one of these colors, and that signifies which test kicked it out. And there's also a chart in the paper on Sasica that has more information on the different tests and the abbreviations and so on. So we also, alright, I'll just show you this. So you can click on, so I just clicked on the bar with the number in it, and that gives us the component properties window will pop up. This plot is the head plot that has has the spread of the data topographically on here for that component. So as you can see, this data is really highly concentrated over here, which is not good, which you'll learn. This data, so this plot here is So this is the trials. So all of the different, all of the trials for all of the data are, or all the trials for this specific data set are on this plot here, and this is the time. So this is when the stimuli was shown, this is before the stimuli, and this is after the stimuli. And the color represents the proportion of the average variance that this waveform, that this component accounts for. So it's like, you can kind of think of it as the like component equivalent of the voltage, but it doesn't directly correlate to voltage. And so when we're looking here, like brain data will tend to show up in most of the trials, but not always. So I'm gonna, in explaining this, assume that someone's already explained to you how to determine whether or not a component is good or bad. And so our job here is to determine whether or not we think the Sasica's determination was correct or not. And we're gonna look through generally just the first 70 components and then just accept Sasica's recommendations past that. So I'm going to say, okay, and sorry, this plot here is the waveform of that component, the time-locked waveform, and these plots here are the Sasica, or will indicate to us what the tests found. And each of these abbreviations, you can see what they stand for in the Sasica paper. There's a table that explains what these are and what they're looking for. And so this dotted line here is the thresholds. And so if something's past the threshold, it'll generally mark it as bad. It should mark it as rejected. But again, Sasica is kind of buggy, so sometimes it doesn't. So that's why you really need to click and look and see, and just kind of see what you think about Sasica's recommendation. So we're going to say that this is okay because this plot looks really bad. And so I'm going to click OK, and then move on to the next component, get another window. Okay, this also looks bad, I'm going to accept that. And then really you should just click through each one of these individually. It's kind of time consuming, but that's kind of what we have to do. So let's say, so this is another kind of problem when I say Sasica's buggy, that we need, this should plot the power spectrum, but it's not. And so in order to do that, we need to use EEG labs capabilities for that. So we're going to do file, or tools, sorry, it's plot, component properties, and then this menu will pop up, and let's say I want to look at component number 5. So see, this is component number 5 here, so I'm going to click 5, click OK. And now EEG Lab will show me the power spectrum here. So this does not look very good. It has a lot of high frequency and no peak at 10 hertz or anything like that. So I'm going to accept this as bad and click OK. Then we're going to just keep going through all of these. And if you want to change, so if you want to do, like, say that Sasica was wrong. So let's say I'm looking at this and seeing, oh, I actually think this is not brain data. Then you're going to click reject, and then click OK, and then the color will change to red here. Yeah, so again, if you want to see more information on a component, you do plot component properties, and then type the number of the component that you want to look more at, and then click OK, and this will pop up. And so once you go through, so let's say we went through all 35 of these components, and decided and evaluated Sasica's suggestions, and we have this how we want. We're gonna minimize it. It's really important that you don't click OK, because if you click OK, then you won't be able to look at all of the rest of the components. So we're just gonna either minimize it or move it out of the way. So I'm just gonna move it out of the way over here. And then I'm gonna go through these components again. And let's say I wanna okay, so when I say Sasica is kind of buggy, like this should be automatically kicked out because it's past, these tests were past the threshold, but it just didn't. So if I think it's bad, then I'll reject it myself. And then let's say, okay, I finished all 70 components, and then generally we're only going to look through the first 70 components, and then it does plot windows for all 209 components that it has found, but past here it doesn't contribute enough to the waveform, so we're just gonna say to accept its recommendations automatically, and we're not gonna evaluate them ourselves. But if we go through that and our data still is looking bad at the end, we might want to come back and look through a couple more components. Okay, so let's say I made it through all 70 components, looking at the windows one at a time. I'm gonna click OK, and all those pop up, and we get a little warning dialog that says, remember, you need to now subtract the marked components. So all we've done so far is marked the components as bad, and it tells us what to do next to actually remove these components. So we're going to do tools, remove components. So tools, remove components, and we get this little menu that pops up, and it has already put all of the components that we marked as bad in here, so we can see them all in here. Yeah, so including ones we marked bad ourselves and the ones that Sasica has said are bad. And if there's one that Sasica marked as bad that we clicked accept instead, then that's not going to show up on this list. So then we're just going to click OK, and please confirm you want to remove these components. We're going to say accept. Oops. And here's so we can rename the data set. It's grabbing the previous name and then adding the tag pruned with ICA. We'll just call it 12 components removed instead. And then click OK. And we've removed our bad components. And if after we do this, we say oh, I think I want to remove a couple more components. You can do tools, Sasica again, and just do it again, and it'll only have and it'll only plot the components that you left in there. I'm gonna stop this for now. If instead of using Sasica, you want to kind of do it the old-fashioned way, you can do tools rejected using ICA, and then reject components by map. So this is the number of components the total number of components, and so we've already removed a bunch of components, so that's why there's only 154, but if you do this before rejecting any, it'll be 209. So again, we really only care about the first 70 components, so we can just plot components 1 through 70, get a little pop-up box, it's more than 30, okay, it only plots 35 per window. And so we see this is the really similar plot from Sasica, but it just doesn't have the Sasica recommendations, obviously. And so again, it's really similar in that we can just click on this and get a window with the component properties like this, and then it has the activity power spectrum here, and we can accept or reject from here, and that in the same way as Sasica will just mark it as bad, and then we have to later go and actually remove these bad components. So I'm going to reject that one, and this one's also not looking bad. Oh yeah, if you click things while they're still plotting, sometimes they get confused, so we'll also reject that one. And For any of these plots, you can click on them to see them bigger if you want. You just click and you get a bigger window of the same one, and you can expand that if you want. You know, so if this one we want to zoom in and see like, oh, what's going on around 10 hertz, we can just use the magnifying glass here and be like, okay, this is what's going on at 10 hertz. So not a whole lot. And then again, just click OK, just like before. And that is how to remove components using ICA.